Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Okay. So today's session, we will be starting about the lower respiratory tract. Okay. In the last session, we have seen about the upper respiratory tract. So in today's session, we will be seeing about the lower respiratory tract, that is beyond the larynx. Next to the larynx will be the trachea. Okay, the trachea. The trachea is also called as the windpipe. Okay, because the air passes through it, so it's also called as the windpipe. Okay, it is continuation with the larynx. The trachea, after some time, divides into two bronchus. Okay, I'll show you the picture. Okay, so it divides into two branches. The point at where it divides, okay, the point at where it divides, it's called as carina. Okay, the point at which the trachea divides into two bronchus is called as carina. It is located at the level of thoracic vertebra level 5, which is also called as the angle of Louis. Okay, the length of the trachea is around 10 to 11 centimeters and it's approximately in the median plane. Okay, approximately in the middle, not exactly in the center, but approximately in the center. The trachea is made up of cartilages. Okay, but these are not complete cartilages, they are incomplete cartilages. So they are C shaped. Okay, so they will be like this. Okay, so the cartilages will be like this only on the anterior and the lateral aspects, but on the posterior aspect, there will be no cartilage. Okay, they are lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, which is also called as the respiratory epithelium. Okay, so here you can see this is the trachea. The trachea is made up of cartilages, around 16 to 20 cartilages. Okay, so why there are cartilages? The cartilages keeps the tube open. Okay, you must have seen like in like some tubes, like the machine, like the tubes which come out from the washing machine. Okay, you know the drains, right? So it has got some corrugations. So that keeps the tube, prevents the tube from collapsing. So similarly, the wind tube, okay, the wind pipe, okay, so it's also called as the trachea. Okay, so the windpipe, it's also called as the trachea, and it divides into bronchus. Here you can see that it divides into right and left bronchus. The point at where it divides, it's called as carina. Okay, so where is this carina located? At the level of T5, which is also called as the angle of Louis. Okay, so this bronchus, right and left bronchus, then you can see like after this the bronchus further divides. Okay, they further divide into smaller and smaller bronchi. So this is called as the primary bronchi, then secondary bronchi, and these are the tertiary bronchi. Okay, the tertiary bronchi, primary bronchus, the purple one is the secondary bronchus, and then the tertiary bronchus. Okay, so the trachea divides into primary bronchus, two primary bronchus, then into secondary bronchus. Each primary bronchus divides into secondary bronchus, and then the secondary bronchus divide into tertiary bronchus. Okay, bronchi is singular and bronchus is plural. Okay, so what are the relations which are located in the trachea? The trachea, anterior to the trachea, there is a gland which is called as the thyroid gland. Okay, the thyroid gland. The isthmus part of the thyroid gland is located here. So we will be reading about this in the endocrine module. And apart from the thyroid gland, there is arch of aorta. Okay, arch of aorta. And posteriorly, there is esophagus. Okay, so here you can see the trachea. The thyroid gland is not shown here, so it will be approximately in this location. Okay, in front of the trachea. But here you can see the arch of aorta. Okay, this we have already seen in the cardiovascular module. Okay, so the arch of aorta, It's located anterior to the trachea, and posteriorly you can see the tube. Which tube is this? This is the esophagus. Okay, the esophagus, that is the food will pass through the esophagus into the stomach. So that is located behind the trachea. So in the front is the trachea, behind is the esophagus. In front of the trachea there is arch of aorta and thyroid gland. Now the bronchus. So there are right and left bronchus we have seen. The right bronchus is short, okay, it's wide and more vertical than the left, okay, whereas the left it is long. You can see that it is, this is 2.5 and this is 5. So this is long, narrow, and it is more oblique than the left, the more oblique than the right, okay, and this divides into two bronchus. I'll just show you the picture here. So here you can see, if you draw a midline here, okay, so if you draw a midline here from the carina, okay, sorry, a straight line, sorry, it's not straight, okay, so this angle is smaller compared to this angle, okay, so which means this is in line with the trachea. Why this is important? Especially in children, okay, in children, suppose if they are left unattended, okay, so they might inhale things, okay, so they have the habit of swallowing or sometimes sniffing, okay, and what happens, this foreign body like a coin or a peanut, okay, so something, if it goes inside, okay, so it will go inside the trachea, and it is more likely to go into the right bronchus than in the left bronchus, okay, so the foreign body is more likely to be located in the right bronchus compared to the left bronchus. Why? Because the right bronchus is wide, it is more in line with the trachea, okay, and it is short, okay, so compared to the left is long and it is more oblique, okay, and narrow, okay, so that's why the foreign bodies are more likely to be found in the right bronchus, okay, so they are more likely to be found in the right bronchus, sorry about that. Yeah, so now the bronchi, as I said, I already told you primary, secondary and tertiary bronchus. Then what happens after the tertiary bronchus? The tertiary bronchus then divides into bronchioles. After the tertiary bronchi, there is bronchioles. Okay, so these bronchioles, they further divide into smaller ones, which is called as terminal bronchioles. And what happens after this terminal bronchioles? There will be what is called as respiratory bronchioles. Okay, and after this respiratory bronchioles, there are alveolar duct and alveoli. Okay, so until the level of bronchus, the cartilages are present. Okay, the cartilages is present. Okay, so until the level of bronchus, what type of cartilage? You know, there are three types of cartilage, right?
It says
It's,
absent, not present.
yeah, here it is hyaline cartilage. Okay, so in the bronchus, in the trachea and the bronchus, the cartilage is hyaline cartilage. Okay, but after the bronchus, that is in the bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts, and alveoli, okay, so the amount of cartilage decreases. Okay, so at the lower levels, the cartilages will be less, and from the respiratory bronchioles there will be no cartilage at all, okay, so the respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts and alveoli, there will be no cartilages, okay, So in bronchi there is cartilage. In bronchioles it will be less. In terminal bronchioles even less. From respiratory bronchioles there will not be any other cartilages. So what is controlling this tube? Beyond this, it is the smooth muscles, which is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means which is not under our control, automatic. Okay, so that controls the opening and closing of the tubes. So here you can see the trachea, the carina, the primary bronchus, secondary bronchus, tertiary bronchus. Then after the tertiary bronchus, the bronchioles, the terminal bronchiole, then the respiratory bronchiole, the alveolar duct, and this small grape-like clusters. So that is the alveoli. Okay, the small round structures. So that is the alveoli. Any doubts until now? All right. So let's
No.
okay. So now let's go to the next one. So the infections. Okay, some of the clinical structures. So if the bronchus is infected, we call it as bronchitis. Itis means infection. Okay, so bronchitis, which means the infection of the bronchus. Okay, so that is called as bronchitis. Tracheostomy. Okay, similarly like what we have seen before, cricothyroidotomy, right? So similarly, in case if there is any obstruction, say due to foreign body or due to a cancer, okay, a laryngeal cancer, so because of which the person is unable to breathe, okay, so they may make an opening in the trachea for the person to breathe, so that is called as tracheostomy. Okay, tracheostomy. So these are the two important things which you need to know. And I think I have already told you this question. The answer for this question, the foreign body obstruction is more common on the right side of the bronchus than on the left side of the bronchus. Okay, so you must be knowing the reason why, because the right bronchus is more wide and more vertical in line with the trachea. So that's why the foreign body obstruction is more common on the right side. Coming to the next topic, the lungs. Okay, the lungs. The lungs, it's more like a pyramidal structure. There are two lungs, the right and left lungs. So it's more conical in structure. So it has got an apex, which is on the superior aspect, a base, which is on the lowermost part, the costal surface, that is, which is close to the ribs, and the medial surface, which is close to the heart. Okay, so here you can see this is the apex, this is the costal surface, this is the base, which is in the inferior aspect, and the medial surface is between the heart, it's close to the heart. Okay, so that is on either sides of the heart. So those are the different surfaces of the lungs. Okay, the lung is also covered by a fibrous layer which is called as pleura. We have seen in heart, right? The heart is covered by pericardium. Okay, so similarly, the lungs are also covered by pleura. Okay, the fibrous structure which is called as pleura. Okay, and this pleura has got two layers, parietal layer and visceral layer. Between these two layers is the pleural fluid. Okay, the pleural fluid which is present in the pleural cavity. We have seen pericardial effusion, right? So which there is inside the pericardium, there will be increased amount of fluid. Similarly, there might be increased fluid inside the pleural cavity, and that is called as pleural effusion. Okay, pleural effusion. Okay, so pleural effusion is around the lungs, whereas pericardial effusion is around the heart. Now, in the lungs, lung roots. Okay, what is this lung roots? So these are the things you need to note: the hilum, pulmonary veins, arteries, bronchi, and bronchial blood vessels. So this is called as the lung root. That is the place where the structures enter or leave. Okay, so this is called as the root of the lung. Okay, which is on the medial surface. Okay, it is located on the medial surface. You know the trachea is located there. The trachea divides into two primary bronchus. Okay, so these two primary bronchus enters into the right and the left lungs. Okay, and apart from it, there is pulmonary arteries and pulmonary veins. Okay, the pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood. Okay, which is coming out from the right ventricle. Okay, you know that the right ventricle, from the impure blood comes from the right atrium to the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle it goes into the pulmonary artery. Okay, so it's is a, which has got more carbon dioxide and less oxygen. So in the lungs there will be exchange of gases, and the pure blood or the oxygenated blood is sent back into the heart again through the pulmonary veins. Okay, through the pulmonary veins it enters back into the heart. So these are the structures which you need to remember. Okay, the hilum, which is also called as the lung root. So in the lung root, what is present? Pulmonary veins, pulmonary arteries, and bronchi. And there will be blood vessels which supply the bronchi, which are called as bronchial blood vessels. Okay, so these are the structures you need to remember in the lung roots. Coming to the difference between the right and the left lungs. The right lung is larger than the left. Why? Because the heart is located on the left. Okay, so which is occupying more space. So naturally, the right lung is larger than the left. Okay, and there are some fissures. Okay, there is an oblique fissure which is present both in the right and the left lung, and horizontal fissure which is present only in the right lung. There is a cardiac notch which is present in the left, and a lingula which is present on the left. I will show you these ones. So here you can see this is the right lung, this is the left lung. So naturally the right lung is larger than the left lung. Okay, and here you can see a fissure. Okay, so this is called as oblique fissure. Okay, oblique fissure. Okay, so the oblique fissure is present on both, and here you can see one additional fissure on the right side, which is the horizontal fissure. So you can see that the right lung is divided into three lobes: upper lobe, middle lobe, lower lobe. Okay, so it has got three lobes: upper lobe, middle lobe, and lower lobe. Whereas the left lung has got only two lobes: upper lobe and lower lobe. Okay, upper lobe and lower lobe. Now here you can see there is a small notch in the lungs. This is called as the cardiac notch. Why it is called as the cardiac notch? Because it provides space for the heart. Okay, so this is called as the cardiac notch, and this place after the cardiac notch, this place exactly, this is called as lingula. Okay, it's called as lingula. Okay, so cardiac notch is located in the left lung, lingula is located in the left lung. Horizontal fissure is located in the right lung. Oblique fissures are present in both. Okay, so this is the cardiac notch and this is the lingula. Any doubts? All right. Now let's see what are the further subdivisions. The lungs can be divided into 10 bronchopulmonary segments. So the right lung can be divided into 10 bronchopulmonary segments, and the left lung can be divided into 10 bronchopulmonary segments. Okay, so these are called as functional units. Each lung is a functional unit. Okay, so here you can see the superior lobe, middle lobe, lower lobe. Okay, of the right lung, and this is the left lung, upper lobe and lower lobe. Okay, upper and lower, or superior and inferior lobes of the left lung. Okay, so why are we dividing this into 10 bronchopulmonary segments? Suppose if there is a cancer, okay, so if suppose if there is a cancer, so previously what they used to do is, what is the treatment for cancer? They will remove the lungs. But if they remove the entire lungs, the person will have difficulty in breathing, isn't it? So what they used to do now is, suppose if the cancer is limited to one bronchopulmonary segment, they will remove only that segment if it has not spread. Okay, so that's why this is useful. Okay, the bronchopulmonary segments. So both the right and the left has got 10 bronchopulmonary segments. Okay, now the next point is regarding the pneumonia. What is pneumonia? Pneumonia means the infection of the alveoli. We have seen terminal bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, and alveoli, right? Suppose if the infection enters into the alveoli, it's called as pneumonia. And the next one is bronchial asthma. What is this bronchial asthma? So in the upper part, there is cartilage, which prevents collapsing of the tube. But as I said, in the lowermost part, beyond the terminal bronchioles, there is no cartilage. So what happens? Sometimes, because of the inflammation or because of the allergy, what happens? The tube narrows. So what happens when the tube is narrowed? The air will not go through the bronchus. So when the air doesn't go inside the bronchus, the person will have difficulty in breathing. Okay, so you must have heard about this term asthma, which is also called as wheeze. The people will have breathing difficulty in breathing like that. They'll make some whistling sounds, and they may take some puff. After that, it would be all right. So that's called as bronchial asthma. So that is because of the narrowing of the terminal tubes. That is the respiratory bronchioles. Okay, the alveolar ducts. Okay, so they collapse during the respiration because of the allergy or because of the inflammation of the bronchioles. Okay, not bronchi, bronchioles. Okay, it is because of the inflammation of the bronchioles. So now you know what is the difference between bronchi and bronchiole. Okay, bronchi is
Yeah.
yeah, is present when the from the trachea. Initially, there is bronchi. Then this bronchi divides into bronchioles. Okay, so this bronchioles, if it is narrowed, it leads on to what is called as bronchial asthma. All right. Any doubts? Okay. So lastly, it's the muscles of respiration. So what are the structures which helps in respiration? So there are ribs. So in between the ribs there are certain muscles which are called as intercostal muscles. Okay, the intercostal muscles. So this intercostal muscles, they help in respiration. So there is external intercostal muscle and internal intercostal muscles. Okay, external which is outside and internal which is inside. So these muscles, they will contract and then help in breathing. Okay, in inspiration and expiration. Apart from this, there is diaphragm. Okay, the diaphragm, which is, yeah, here you can see the diaphragm, which is below, which separates the thorax and the abdomen. Okay, the diaphragm. So the diaphragm also helps in respiration. Okay, so the intercostal muscles and the diaphragm, they help in respiration. Now, in the diaphragm, as I said before, it divides the thorax and the abdomen. There are certain openings because there are certain structures which pass from the thorax to the abdomen and abdomen to the thorax. Okay, so what are these structures? One is the inferior vena cava, esophagus, and aorta. Okay, now at which level it passes through the diaphragm? That is very important. So at the level of T8, that is thoracic vertebra level 8. Okay, so this is eighth along the eighth thoracic vertebra. the inferior vena cava will pass through, and along the 10th thoracic vertebra level, esophagus will pass through, and along the 12th thoracic vertebra, there will be aorta which passes through. Okay, so T8, 10, and 12. Inferior vena cava at the level of 8. Okay, esophagus at the level of T10, and aorta at the level of T12. The nerve supply for the diaphragm is phrenic nerve. Okay, so the phrenic nerve is very important. If the phrenic nerve is damaged, so what happens? The person cannot breathe. Okay, so they will have respiratory problems. Okay, so this is a very important nerve which helps persons to breathe. Okay, the phrenic nerve. Okay, so that's it regarding the lower respiratory tract. Okay, so do you have any doubts?
No, doctor.
Nope.